so that occurs in what are called association areas. So your motor areas for initiation of movements, sensory areas where we begin perception, and then association areas which sort of connect the two. Remember, each hemisphere is managing the sensory and motor function of the contralateral side of the body. So at some point, things are going to crisscross before it goes out to the body. So here you can see the sort of the beginning of breaking down the different areas and understanding where those functional areas are. And the ones that we've talked about that are very important so far are, here's the central sulcus, here's the precentral gyrus, and so this is that primary motor area. So if I activate neurons here, it will cause skeletal muscle on the contralateral side of my body to contract. Here's the postcentral gyrus. Somebody touches my arm. I want to know that that's happening, and so that information is going to come into the postcentral gyrus, and I become consciously aware of it. You can see that then we have other areas that are going to be important as well. You can see sort of in general what each lobe's function is going to be here. Okay? But there's something called the Brodmann's cytoarchitectural map of the human cortex, and this was first published in 1909, and numbers have been assigned to different portions of the cerebral cortex. And so you sort of start at the precentral, or the central sulcus, and work your way around from that point. You don't have to know all these numbers. Don't freak out. The numbers that you're responsible for are going to be those that are in the textbook on page 182, and I'm going to go over those particular ones now with you, and because these numbers are still discussed today. And so the first one is going to be 312. They do it in that particular order, so it's 312. 312 relates to the postcentral gyrus. And so let me give you a little orientation because we've actually been looking at the brain flip the other direction. This is going to be anterior, this is going to be posterior, and so we have frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe, and temporal lobe here. So 312, here's your central sulcus, and we're on the postcentral gyrus. So we've already talked about 312, and 312 is going to be the area that is going to be related to the primary somatosensory area. So where you start to perceive sensation for the contralateral side of the body. So it includes general information such as pain, temperature, vibration, spatial orientation, touch, appreciation of texture, 2-point discrimination, localization of pain and temperature. All of this starts at this area here. There's number 4. You just go anterior to the central sulcus. Number 4 is going to be the precentral gyrus. That's your primary motor area. Primary motor area responsible for fine motor control. So if you go on there and stimulate one of those neurons, it will cause skeletal muscle to contract on the contralateral side of your body. Yep, question?
Yeah, so is there a reason why you did 312 as opposed to 321 or 123?
It's just the way they do it. It's probably related to something somebody did at some point along the way, and so it's always been 312 when they talk about it. We've been trying to figure out why that is for a while now. Okay. Next, we're going to go back into the occipital lobe. Back here in the occipital lobe. Number 17 here is the primary visual area. Primary visual area. It's where visual stimulation is received and where you begin to perceive it. You need to understand what you're looking at, and that brings in 18 and 19, this area here, the visual association areas. Visual association areas. Some people say 18 and 19, your book just says 18, we'll just go with 18. So just go with 18, secondary visual area. That's around 17. And helps to associate visual impulses with prior experiences. So, in other words, here's my glasses. My glasses are going to sit up on the counter here. The fact that I see something and I perceive those glasses sitting there, the fact that I'm perceiving something, anything sitting there, is because of 17. The fact that I understand that those are my glasses based on prior experiences, that's 18. That's bringing that information in, allowing me to understand that. Absolutely. So there will be communication between different parts of the brain to allow for these things to happen. A lot of the information coming in will be reorganized sometimes before it's sent somewhere. Other areas help to understand it. So you have some sensory areas, some motor areas, and then you have those association areas that help you to really understand it. And what's also very important is that there's a lot of what's called plasticity associated with this cortex as well. So if something happens and damages part of the brain, part of the cortex, another part of the brain may take over the function associated with it. So that can happen as well because of the plasticity associated with this tissue.